Willkommen, Swakom, Shalom. And I don't know whether I'll get this one right. Obro Ozalwat. All of you are welcome to Jagriti-G20-Startup20 Yatra 2023. आप सबका जागृति G20 स्टार्टअप 20 यात्रा 2023 में तहे दिल से स्वागत है। मैं इतना हर्षित हूं आज की तारीख में कि पूरे विश्व से अनेक लोग यहां पर आए हुए हैं। आप सबका स्वागत है। In this hall are gathered 500 of the most imaginative minds of India and the world. You come from 20 different countries, but also many Indians here come from 24 different states, of which 40% are women. So welcome to you. And together this group, an international group this year, is going to circle the country, the largest democracy, and as of April this year, the largest country of this world, in a unique train journey, a historical train journey. So welcome again. And in this duration, we will, I believe, seed a new international Udyamita movement. And that also requires all of your energies, all the energies of this team, which is in the yellow dress, and I'm sure that the whole country is watching. My own journey in 2008 as a founder of Jagriti Yatra started as a pilgrimage only to return. And in doing so, I was following in the footsteps of a great saint of India, Swami Vivekananda, who traveled non-stop for 6 years. He got his moment of enlightenment in Kanyakumari, my favorite place, and then he returned also to his own place. There he started a movement by creating the Belur Mutt. I have also had a similar journey, and my journey started as a young person in a village where there's a beautiful banyan tree. You'll see it. It's about 120 feet in its diameter, the shade. And from that place, I went out, I explored the world, we started the journey, and over the last 15 odd years, we have circled this country about roughly 8,000 kilometers every year. That means that we have circled the world 3 times with 7,500 people. और हमारे संस्कृति में एक कहावत है कि जब गणेश भगवान को बोला कि ब्रह्मांड को घूम के आइए और आपका चरित्र पहचाना जाएगा, तो उन्होंने अपने माता पिता के आसपास भ्रमण लगाया और वापस आए। इसी तरह मैंने भी भारत माता का भ्रमण किया है पिछले 14 साल से 7,500 लोगों के साथ। और जितना आशीर्वाद शायद पूरे विश्व का भ्रमण नहीं मिला होगा, ब्रह्मांड का नहीं होगा, उतना आशीर्वाद मुझे मिला है भारत माता से और आप लोगों को मिलेगा, क्योंकि आप लोग इस बार मेरे साथ, हम सब के साथ चलेंगे और इसमें मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि हम लोग आगे बढ़ेंगे। Today the world is in a tight spot. There are 2 wars going on, as if the Ukraine war was not enough. Unfortunately and recently, there is a war in Israel as well. And I think at this point in time, you can see inequality across the world. And the phenomena of Brexit, perhaps even the victory of Trump, was a result of that inequality at various parts of the world, not just in the emerging world, but the emerged world as well. And there is a huge shadow over Mother Earth on the environmental front. Are we really going to give and inherit, and our children will inherit a planet that we feel proud of, they feel proud of? In all of this, I believe India and this yatra has something new to offer. India has always provided a balm to humanity whenever a stressful time has arisen. Starting from 500 BC, when Buddha came out of India and spread the method of Buddhism all across the world, India has always believed that integration and innovation are 2 sides of the same coin. If you don't have an integrated view of development, you will always be divisive. And hence, the wisdom of India is available to the whole world, and I believe to all of you, to digest and take forward globally at this time of distress. And in this, the presidency of G20 of India, where we have coined The Honorable Prime Minister has coined a phrase, Vasudev Kutumbukam. The world is a family, is extremely relevant. It cannot be at a time which is more appropriate that this phrase is resonating across the world at a time where India's presidency has been applauded. One of the international yatris met me earlier. I don't know her name, but she's from Czechoslovakia. She said that the way India has handled the presidency has been talked about in Europe. It's a very mature presidency, of the most mature democracy, with due respect to my US colleagues, which is 1.4 billion people that the world has today. So in this situation, let's talk about another philosophical word that I called Udyamita. Udyamita is another word which is originated from Indian philosophy. And there is a Sanskrit shlok, Udyame nahi siddhyanti karyani namanurthe nahi suttas singhasya praveshanti mukhe mriga. Meaning the person who's enterprising, who's udyami, not necessarily a person who only starts a company. That is entrepreneurship. That is narrower. Udyamita is a broader framework. It's a philosophy that can be taken to other parts of the world. And of course, it exists in other parts of the world. It has to be enlightened. It has to be awakened. The whole Shabd Jagriti is about enlightenment and awakening that inherent udyami who's hidden in most people across this country and across the world. And that word is also based on a humanist culture that India believes in. India has always believed that humanity, what I think Aneri said earlier, that the inner spirituality, if you awaken that, is something which will take you far. And that is something that we've offered from the time of our great yogic saints to the time of Buddha, to the time, even right now, you see it in the small towns and villages, considering I am living in a village and I see that every day. It's seen in that banyan tree, which is a symbol of Jagriti, but is also the symbol of the village that I come from, Barpar. उद्यमिता एक ऐसा शब्द है जिसको हमें आगे ले जाना पड़ेगा और उसके लिए हम लोग को परिश्रम करना है. इस यात्रा में हम उद्यमिता के शब्द को आगे ले जाएंगे और भगवान की कृपा से यह शब्द पूरे विश्व में भी जा सकता है. And in that sense, one must think about middle of the dime in India, the name of my recent book, which I have coined Middle of the Dime in India, National Renaissance Through Participation in Enterprise. And here I talk about those amazing people living in tier 2, tier 3 districts for whom English is not the right language, who can speak in Bengali, who can speak in Bhojpuri, who can speak in Odia, and they're as equal as we are. And that recognition has to come from this middle India of tier 2 and tier 3 districts, which is about 240 of the 750 districts, is really where the heart of India still resides. Our culture is still intact there. Our culture has not been colonized, I'm here to tell you. And you will discover that culture as you go across the country over the next 14 days, because you will see that culture. It'll take more time for you to digest it. You'll probably have to live like I did in a village. But that middle also exists globally. That middle is in the 5 billion people across the world who are neither very rich nor are they very poor. That middle is also looking for awakening. That middle is in middle Nigeria. I've lived in Nigeria for 2 years. That middle is in Indonesia. That middle is also in the United States, in the Midwest, which has been ignored. So this thesis that there is an elite who knows everything essentially is a front to democracy and republicanism. What we need to do is to ignite another republican energy over this yatra and across the world if we were to do that. And to do that, this yatra has got 2 super themes, I call them. One is inclusive entrepreneurship. हर घर में उद्यमी, अभी आर.के. सिंह साहब से बात हो रही थी, उनका नारा भी सिडबी का यही है कि हर घर में एक उद्यमी हम पा सकते हैं. Inclusive entrepreneurship. It doesn't have to belong only to Bangalore and Delhi and some enclaves, let's say in Los Angeles or Boston. It can be in Minnesota. It can be in Devariya. And that is the udyamita that we want to create in this particular yatra. And there is an innovator in everyone. We have to awaken that. And mass innovation, mass flourishing, as Edmund Phelps, a Nobel laureate, has called, has got 2 major impacts. One of which is it gives meaning to people and, of course, creates a more productive economy. Read about it in my book. And then the last piece is women-led development. This is the second piece. And this year we have taken to women-led development because since the G20 declaration, our parliament has passed a bill which is going to be into law once it gets ratified by the states, that there will be 33% reservation for women in the parliament. This is one of the biggest shifts for women-led development globally, and a big round of applause for that. Never in the history of our nations anywhere have we had the audacity to say that women-led development is important. Mind you, it's not developing women that we have to bring up women. Women will take us forward. That is the new imagination which has come across. If we don't let women lead, then the balance sheet building capabilities that Ashutosh talked at the induction will not be available for all of us. That doesn't mean that men don't have to come forward, but we have to bring the women, the other leg which is not currently walking forward. These are the two super themes. Underneath that, there are 5 other themes. Number 1, we will discuss in Bangalore sustainability and digital. Number 2, in Varanasi, the capital of culture for India, as far as I'm concerned, culture and entrepreneurship. Number 3, under that beautiful banyan tree in Devariya, ecosystems. The banyan tree itself is an ecosystem. Number 4, in Delhi, the first one, women-led development, which I've already talked about, and then cross-border collaboration. And in Gandhinagar, which is the last stop before we go to Bombay again, Mumbai again, we will have essentially taking the yatra through a baton, which will be unveiled later today to Brazil. And I'm very excited that under the Startup 20 program, there's a Brazil-Amazon Yatra which will happen. So here we are at the start of that journey, taking this across the country and taking it into a place where we can really declare it to be global. And in that team, my last piece is that we have to unfurl the flag of Udyamita globally through an analogy. And that analogy I will give you, that around the end of the 18th century, end of the 19th century, Olympianism was a value that came across. Olympianism was a value which celebrated sports. It celebrated ethics. It celebrated fair play. And that Olympian value was instituted so that the Olympic Games can take place every 4 years. And we are going to have one in Paris next year. And by the way, I have been to 3 or 4 because both of my daughters are very good athletes. So Gauri, who's here today, and we have taken them to Beijing, taken them to London, and they are really flourishing as athletes. So I've seen the Olympic movement in close quarters personally. And if Olympianism was the value at that time, then Udyamita is a value which is needed now. And if Olympic Games are the games that celebrate that Olympian values in one place, then the Jagriti Yatra is going to celebrate the values of Udyamita every year in India and across the world. The Jagriti Yatra is going to be the Olympic ceremony in the days to come of Udyamita, where we will take this movement. And if you remember, Olympic movement was coined after an ancient civilization, Greece, and the marathon, and everything that they represented. It was represented by the olive tree. Well, guess what? Udyamita is being coined by a great Indian civilization of equal, if not a more ancient heritage. And that is also going to be represented by a tree called the banyan tree. So if there was an olive then there'll be a banyan now. And that is a movement that this yatra, not the previous 15 ones, but this yatra, all of you are going to see it over the next 14 days, because this is just an idea. Sunil is here with me. We're going to try to seed it out so that we can take it across the world. इस अभियान में, इस मूवमेंट में आप सब भागीदार रहेंगे. हम लोग जब आएंगे अहमदाबाद में तो एक नई यात्रा का ही अंत नहीं होगा, एक नई मूवमेंट की शुरुआत होगी. Come and join that movement over the next many years. And like me, many of you will go back to your districts and make sure that you do something for that district. Many of you from international communities will go back to your countries and ensure that the values you see in India, some to adopt, some maybe to ignore, in those countries and your own towns and cities. But above all, think about a world which is peaceful, which is equitable, which is inclusive, which is women-led, which is environmentally sustainable. In that world, my friends, I invite you for this next 14 days. So once again, thank you very much for coming all this way. And of course, I want to thank particularly the international yatris who've come thousands of miles and will now travel thousands of miles with us in the next 14 days. Thank you very much. Welcome, Swagat.